Sarah's mornings began to look different. No longer dreading the mundane tasks Alicia had reduced her to, she found herself invigorated by the subtle but crucial work she was doing behind the scenes. Each day, she added another piece to the puzzle, meticulously crafting a narrative that would expose Alicia's incompetence and manipulative tactics. Sarah's goal wasn't just to reclaim her position, it was to lay bare the chaos Alicia had sown. Every interaction became an opportunity. Sarah started attending meetings she'd previously been excluded from, taking notes with the precision of a court reporter. She kept a meticulous log of Alicia's decisions, highlighting the growing disconnect between what Alicia promised clients and what the team was actually capable of delivering. Sarah's plan was simple: let Alicia's failures speak for themselves while quietly setting up her own success. One morning, Sarah sat at her desk when her email pinged with a new message. She opened it to find yet another directive from Alicia, this time demanding an update on the backlog of documents Sarah was tasked with organizing. Subject: urgent. Document status: update. Sarah, where are we with the document archives? I need a full update by end of day. Thanks, Alicia. Sarah stared at the screen, biting her lip. Alicia's constant micromanaging was a thinly veiled attempt to keep Sarah too busy to notice the real problems, but Sarah wasn't distracted. She drafted a polite but vague response, deliberately leaving out any specific timeline that could be used against her later. She knew Alicia was looking for any excuse to blame her when things went wrong. Just as she hit send, Julie appeared at her desk, looking frazzled. "Sarah, have you got a minute?" "Of course, what's up?" Julie glanced around, making sure they were alone before she spoke. Alicia's in panic mode over the Gregory and Sons account. She's got Tom and Claire working overtime to try and salvage the candidate pool, but it's a mess. I overheard her on the phone with Mr. Gregory, and it was brutal. He's demanding answers. Sarah nodded, a flicker of satisfaction crossing her face. This was exactly what she had anticipated. I figured this would happen. Alicia's been making promises she can't keep, and now it's catching up with her. Julie sighed, running a hand through her hair. She's blaming everyone but herself. Tom's practically in tears, and Claire's too green to push back. They're scared of her, Sarah. She's turning this whole place upside down. Sarah leaned back in her chair, her mind already turning over the next steps. "Julie, do you still have the files on the Gregory and Sons candidates? The ones that Tom and Claire screened?" "Yeah, why?" Sarah's eyes gleamed with a quiet determination. "Send them to me. I want to take a look. If there's anything salvageable, we need to fix it before it gets worse. And if not, we need to make sure the blame lands where it belongs." Julie nodded, understanding exactly what Sarah was getting at. Alicia's reckless promises had created a powder keg, and Sarah was going to light the match at just the right moment. Sarah spent the afternoon reviewing the candidates, and it was worse than she had imagined. Tom and Claire were overworked and undertrained, and it showed. The shortlisted candidates were unqualified, poorly vetted, and in some cases, their credentials hadn't even been verified. It was the kind of sloppy work that would have been caught immediately under Sarah's watch, but Alicia's quest for speed had compromised the entire process. Sarah began drafting a report, carefully documenting each oversight and matching it with corresponding emails and directives from Alicia. She laid out a clear timeline of events, demonstrating how each misstep could be traced back to Alicia's poor leadership decisions. She included the missed deadlines, the conflicting instructions, and the unrealistic expectations Alicia had set. It wasn't just a critique, it was an indictment. Later that evening, Sarah met Julie at their usual wine bar. The dimly lit space was a perfect refuge from the office drama, and tonight Sarah needed to strategize. Julie slid into the booth across from her, already sensing that Sarah had something big on her mind. "All right, Sarah, spill. You've got that look," Julie said, sipping her wine. Sarah pulled out a stack of printed emails and her carefully crafted report, sliding them across the table to Julie. "This is everything. Every mismanaged directive, every missed deadline, every unrealistic promise Alicia's made to Gregory and Sons and other clients. I've cross-referenced it all with our internal reports to show the direct impact on team performance. Julie skimmed through the pages, her eyes widening as she realized the extent of Alicia's mismanagement. "This is Sarah, this is gold. You've got her dead to rights." Sarah nodded, feeling a surge of confidence. "The higher-ups need to see this. But I'm not going to present it as a personal attack. I'm going to frame it as a call for help. Alicia has painted herself as the hero, but the data will show she's the problem." Julie leaned back, clearly impressed. "So what's the next move?" Sarah thought for a moment, carefully considering her options. "I'm going to send an anonymous report to HR and the board, but I'm going to time it perfectly, right after the next client meeting where Alicia is bound to make another impossible promise. I want them to see her failures in real time." Julie grinned, raising her glass. "I knew you'd figure this out. Here's to strategic brilliance." Sarah clinked her glass against Julie's, feeling the adrenaline of her plan taking shape. It wasn't just about getting back at Alicia. It was about restoring balance to the office, reclaiming her dignity, and making sure no one else had to endure what she had. Alicia had scheduled another call with Gregory and Sons to address the growing concerns over their account. Sarah attended the meeting quietly, sitting at the back of the room, unnoticed but attentive. Alicia launched into her usual routine of grand promises and overconfident assurances, but it was clear that Mr. Gregory wasn't buying it. His voice was clipped, his questions pointed. "Alicia, we've been hearing a lot of excuses, but not seeing results. We need more than talk, we need action." Alicia's smile faltered just for a second, but it was enough for Sarah to see the cracks. Alicia fumbled through a series of excuses, blaming the team, the market, and anything else she could think of to deflect responsibility. Sarah's moment had arrived. She quietly sent the report to HR, the board members, and Mr. Gregory, labeling it as an urgent review of current recruitment practices. She didn't need to sign it. The evidence spoke for itself. The report hit the inboxes like a bomb. Within hours, whispers spread throughout the office as people began to realize that Alicia's carefully constructed narrative was crumbling. HR called an emergency meeting with the department heads, and Sarah knew the fallout was only beginning. Alicia's smug demeanor vanished overnight. She spent the next few days in frantic meetings, desperately trying to patch the holes in her sinking ship, but it was too late. The board had seen the data, the clients had voiced their displeasure, and the truth of Alicia's mismanagement was laid bare for all to see. Sarah watched it all unfold with a sense of quiet satisfaction. She didn't gloat, didn't revel in Alicia's downfall, but she felt vindicated. The storm that Alicia had brought into the office was finally dissipating, and Sarah's silent, strategic approach had turned the tide. Julie caught up with Sarah after the HR meeting, her face flushed with excitement. "They're going to review everything, Sarah. This could be it, Alicia's last stand." Sarah smiled, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. "Good. It's time this place got back to being about the work, not the drama." Alicia had underestimated Sarah at every turn, but in the end, it was her own arrogance that sealed her fate. Sarah had played the long game, and she had won. The morning of the emergency meeting, the office buzzed with nervous energy. Rumors swirled as employees exchanged hushed whispers about the scathing report that had landed on the desks of HR and the board. Sarah kept her head down, pretending to focus on her usual tasks, but every now and then she caught snippets of conversation. "She's finished," Julie whispered as she passed Sarah's desk, her eyes wide with barely contained excitement. "HR is going over everything with a fine-tooth comb. They're even interviewing clients." "I heard Mr. Gregory demanded a personal call with the board." Sarah nodded subtly, masking her satisfaction. She had timed her strike perfectly, ensuring Alicia's most egregious missteps were highlighted when the company was already on high alert. Now it was only a matter of time before Alicia's reckless management style came under fire. The emergency meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. sharp, and by 9:45, the tension in the office was palpable. Alicia, usually punctual to the point of obsession, was nowhere to be seen. Sarah caught sight of her office, lights off, door firmly shut, and wondered if Alicia was scrambling to piece together a defense. At exactly 10 o'clock, the conference room filled up with department heads, key recruiters, and a few executives from the board. Sarah sat at the back, her expression composed, though her heart pounded with anticipation. Alicia finally swept into the room, her face a mask of strained composure. She was dressed in her usual sharp suit, but there was a nervous edge to her movements, a faint tremor in her hands that hadn't been there before. Sarah watched as Alicia took her seat at the head of the table, her eyes darting around the room as if trying to gauge who had turned on her. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Alicia began, her voice tight and unsteady. "There's been some concern raised about the efficiency of our recent operations, specifically regarding our handling of certain client accounts." Sarah kept her gaze fixed on Alicia, noting the slight quiver in her usually commanding voice. Alicia was scrambling, desperately trying to maintain control, but the veneer of confidence was cracking. Mr. McKay, the head of HR, cleared his throat and looked directly at Alicia. He was a seasoned professional, not easily swayed by theatrics, and today he looked particularly unimpressed. "Alicia, we've received a detailed report outlining serious discrepancies in the management of the Gregory & Sons account, among others. These discrepancies directly correlate with a significant drop in client satisfaction and overall team morale." Alicia's smile faltered, and for a moment she looked like a deer caught in headlights. "I can assure you, Mr. McKay, that these issues are being addressed. The team is adjusting to new processes and—" Mr. Gregory's voice cut through the room, deep and unmistakably angry, his tone leaving no room for Alicia's excuses. He had joined the meeting via video call, his face appearing on the large screen at the front of the room. "Adjusting? Alicia, your adjustments have cost us time and money. Your team is floundering, and you've been blaming everyone but yourself. This isn't about new processes, it's about mismanagement." The room fell silent, every eye on Alicia as she struggled to regain her footing. Sarah kept her expression neutral, watching the power dynamics shift. Alicia was visibly rattled, her confidence crumbling under the weight of the undeniable facts presented in Sarah's anonymous report. "I appreciate your feedback, Mr. Gregory," Alicia said, her voice strained. "I take full responsibility for any lapses and," Mr. McKay interjected, his tone authoritative. "This isn't just about Gregory & Sons. We've reviewed multiple instances where timelines were missed, candidates were poorly vetted, and communication broke down entirely. The report we received highlights a pattern of mismanagement that cannot be ignored." Alicia's eyes flashed with a mix of anger and panic. She tried to deflect, spinning tales of overworked staff and a market that was too demanding, but the evidence was overwhelming. Sarah's documentation painted a picture of a leader out of touch with her team, making promises she couldn't keep, and creating chaos where there should have been order. "I've done my best to adapt our strategies in a highly competitive environment," Alicia insisted, her voice growing shrill. "But the report is clearly biased. It doesn't take into account the broader context of—" Mr. McKay cut her off, his patience wearing thin. "This isn't about bias, Alicia. It's about accountability. Your decisions have directly impacted our clients and our team's ability to perform. This kind of reckless leadership isn't sustainable." Alicia's face turned pale, and she glanced around the room, searching for a lifeline. But there was none. She was alone, exposed, and on the verge of losing everything she had fought so hard to control. Finally, Mr. Gregory spoke again, his voice colder than before. "Alicia, I don't care about your excuses. I care about results, and right now your results are abysmal. My firm won't tolerate this level of incompetence. You've lost our trust." Those words were a death knell. Alicia knew it, and so did everyone else in the room. She sat back defeated as Mr. McKay turned to the rest of the board. "We'll be conducting a thorough review of the current leadership structure. For now, Alicia, you are suspended pending further investigation." Alicia opened her mouth to protest, but the words died on her lips. She nodded numbly, realizing there was no way out of this. The once powerful and confident leader was reduced to a mere figure of humiliation, undone by her own hubris. Sarah kept her face impassive, but inside, she felt a surge of triumph. She had done it. Alicia's reign of terror was crumbling, and it was all because Sarah had played her cards perfectly. After the meeting, Sarah returned to her desk, but she didn't have much time to reflect on her victory before Julie appeared, her face flushed with excitement. "Did you see her?" "She's finished, Sarah. I've never seen Alicia look so small." Sarah nodded, keeping her voice calm. "It was bound to happen. She dug her own grave." Julie laughed, shaking her head in disbelief. "And you handed her the shovel. What now?" "Now we rebuild. I'm going to request a meeting with the board. Not to gloat, but to offer solutions. We've been running on damage control for too long. It's time to bring this place back to where it was. Julie's grin widened. And you're the one to do it. They'd be fools not to see that. Sarah's meeting with the board came swiftly. She presented her case calmly and professionally, outlining the steps needed to restore the department's reputation. She didn't just criticize Alicia's failures, she proposed concrete solutions, streamlined processes, better training for new recruits, and a renewed focus on client relationships. Sarah's vision was clear, practical, and exactly what the board needed to hear. By the end of the meeting, the board members were nodding in agreement. Mr. McKay looked at Sarah with a renewed respect. Sarah, we've always known you were a key player here, but you've proven yourself to be much more than that. Effective immediately, we'd like to reinstate your full responsibilities, along with a raise and additional support staff to help you implement these changes. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had not only reclaimed her position, but had risen above the pettiness and politics to truly lead. Thank you, Mr. McKay. I'm ready to get us back on track. The fallout from Alicia's suspension was swift. Within days, her office was cleared out, and whispers of her misconduct spread through the industry. Sarah never took pleasure in another person's downfall, but she felt justified. Alicia had tried to strip her of everything, but Sarah's patience, intelligence, and quiet perseverance had won out in the end. As Sarah settled back into her role, her tasks restored and her confidence renewed, she couldn't help but smile. The office was returning to normal, the team rallying behind her as she led them back from the brink. Sarah had proven her worth, not just to the company, but to herself. The last loose ends of Alicia's tenure were tied up when the board officially announced her termination. Her downfall had been swift, brutal, and well-deserved, but Sarah was already looking forward. She had her tasks back, her respect restored, and a bright future ahead. Alicia had underestimated her, but Sarah had shown everyone that she was a force to be reckoned with. As Sarah returned to her office, a spacious corner room now, newly designated as her own, Julie burst in with a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. "Promotion confirmed?" Julie asked, her grin wide and infectious. Sarah laughed, accepting the glass Julie poured. "Confirmed, head of recruitment operations. I can't believe it." Julie raised her glass, eyes gleaming with pride. "You did this, Sarah. You stood your ground, played it smart, and won." Alicia never stood a chance. They toasted, clinking their glasses together. The bubbly liquid tasted of victory and hard-earned success. Sarah let the moment sink in, savoring the sweet irony of it all. Alicia had tried to erase her, to turn her into a mere shadow in her own career, but it was Alicia who had been banished, leaving Sarah to shine brighter than ever. Later that afternoon, Sarah took a walk around the office, checking in with her team. Claire and Tom were hard at work, but they looked more confident now, more assured in their roles. Sarah had taken the time to mentor them, giving them the support and guidance they needed. She knew they were good. Alicia had just thrown them into the deep end without a life raft. "Hey, Sarah," Tom called as she passed his desk, a grateful smile on his face. "Thanks for all the help these past few weeks. I really feel like I'm finally getting the hang of this." "You're doing great, Tom," Sarah replied warmly. "You've got a good instinct. You just needed the right support. Keep it up." Claire nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, I'm learning so much. You make this look easy, but now I know how much work really goes into it." Sarah smiled, feeling a swell of pride. "It's a team effort, and you two are proving that every day." As Sarah continued her rounds, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. Her new office was filled with light, a stark contrast to the dreary corner she had been relegated to under Alicia's reign. The symbolic change wasn't lost on her. She had earned every inch of that space. One day, as Sarah was settling into her new role, an email popped up from HR formally announcing Alicia's termination. It was short, professional, and final, a single line in the company newsletter that marked the end of Alicia's tumultuous tenure. Subject: Leadership Change Announcement. We would like to inform you that Alicia Reynolds is no longer with McKinley & Company. We thank her for her service and wish her well in her future endeavors. Sarah read the email twice, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Alicia's name would fade, her legacy nothing more than a cautionary tale of arrogance and mismanagement. For Sarah, it was a quiet but definitive closure to a chapter that had tested her in ways she never expected. Julie peeked into Sarah's office later that day, holding up her phone. "Did you see? It's official. She's gone." Sarah nodded. "I saw. It's the right call." Next, we build. We fix what's broken, keep what's working, and make this place better than ever. And we make sure this team never has to go through that kind of leadership again. Julie raised an imaginary glass. To rebuilding. And to you, Sarah. You did more than survive. You transformed. Sarah smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. To rebuilding, she echoed, and to never letting anyone else define our worth. Alicia's shadow faded from the office entirely, replaced by a culture of respect and collaboration. Sarah's journey had taught her that power didn't come from titles or empty gestures. It came from integrity, hard work, and the courage to stand up when others tried to push you down. Months later, as Sarah sat in her office, she received a message from Mr. Gregory himself. Subject: "Thank you, Sarah. I wanted to personally thank you for turning things around. Your leadership has been a breath of fresh air, and we're thrilled to continue working with you. You've more than earned our trust. Best, Jonathan Gregory." Sarah smiled, closing the email with a sense of quiet pride. She had weathered the storm and come out stronger on the other side. Alicia's ambition had been her undoing, but Sarah's perseverance had been her triumph. She leaned back in her chair, gazing out at the bustling city below. Sarah had reclaimed her place, not just in her career, but in her own self-worth. She had proven, to herself and everyone else, that no one could take away what she had built, because she was more than just a job title, more than the tasks Alicia had tried to strip from her. Sarah Lawson was a force, and now everyone knew it.